We'll do the AFC. Let's bring in my guy Tone here, and let's get his
Big Sales. How we feeling, sir?
Oh, good, man. Tone, Howie's week. What do you think?
I think I give it A minus, B plus. I think that's pretty fair. All things considered. Let's be honest. We came into this offseason expecting to lose a lot of bodies, and we did lose some. You lost TJ, you lost Miles, you lost Javon, you lost Marcus, Kaiser White, Gardner Minshew, Andre Dillard. You lost some depth pieces. You lost some quality starters, especially in the linebacker room. Say what you want about Kaiser White's production and TJ Edwards' ability to cover. They lost some pretty quality starters. But, you go to the other side, they were able to bring back James Bradbury, a guy that I didn't think that they were going to be able to bring back. They brought back Fletch, Brandon Graham, Kelsey. They brought back some key pieces. If you notice, a lot of the guys they brought back shows and speaks to the philosophy of how this team is built. They care more about the trenches than anything else.
Always have. Always have, Tone. That's always been one of the big things that has kept it. This is one of the things that I've always said about the Eagles since Laurie's owned the team, is that since Norman Brayman, the one thing that you give them credit for, they know that building championship runs, and the reason they've been the most successful team in the NFC East since 2000 has been the fact that they believe in O-lines and D-lines. And again, my only question is, and I kind of get it, I'm not paying $20 million for Hargrave, especially when my priorities are in my back end with my secondary. I think the Slay move at the end of the day is like you like to say, that's in Howie's snow globe, man. I mean, he ends up getting his player. I think you and I come up that he took a $3 million haircut or something like that, but they gave him more money up front. And again, people are making it sound like I think this is a loss. It's not a loss. It's a win for Roseman and the Eagles because you get your two corners back. They lose their linebackers, though. Now, this is a position that they don't. I heard John McMullen make this point. John doesn't really think the Eagles put a huge value on this. But, dude, I got to say, since they put TJ in that starting lineup a year ago or in the 2021 season, he solidified that defense. I think he's a loss.
I agree. I actually agree with you 120% about that. I was talking to John about that as well. And he was pretty shocked, when you look at the numbers that TJ Edwards got. When he saw that, he said to himself, well, if he only got $6.5 million a year, why couldn't the Eagles pay that? Because we all thought TJ would command a little bit more than that, especially with the market shifting the way it did. We thought TJ would get at least, I don't know, maybe 8, 9, I don't know, something like that. But when you saw that he only got $19.5 million over 3 years and Howie Roseman didn't want to pay that, that just spoke volumes about how he truly doesn't value that position. Think about TJ Edwards, his upbringing, how he got here. He wasn't even drafted.
Right,
he wasn't even drafted. Granted, a quality player in college, but he wasn't even drafted because of a poor 40-yard dash time. So all of the entire linebacker room is filled with guys that either wasn't drafted or guys like a Davion Taylor, who's a third-round pick, who I think needs to start to show something. A guy in Sean Bradley, who I think needs to spend a lot more time, putting some work in on the field and staying healthy. Ultimately, the linebacker room is not in a position that you really want to write home about. And I think at some point, especially if you're not that good at drafting, you got to just go for the home run hitter with the linebacker position. If you want to solidify that position. But again, they don't care about it. I always talk about, and I learned this, from listening to, guys like you and McMullen, Jody Mack, Derek Gunn. I learned this by covering the game under you guys. There are 5 key positions that not only the Eagles, but for the most part, the NFL cares about, and that's truly conducive to winning. And this is in no particular order, but that's the quarterback position, the receiver position, the edge rusher position, the corner position, and the left tackle position. If you're not one of those positions, the Eagles look at you like you're expendable for the most part. And I'll maybe take it a step further with the offensive line. If you're not an offensive lineman or any one of those other 4 positions I mentioned, quarterback, receiver, edge rusher, or corner, the Eagles look at you as, okay, we can probably shortchange that position. And that's what they've done for the past several years. And that's what the NFL continues to do.
Bobby Wagner's out there.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's going to command. Do do you present it to him like this, like they did to Bradbury? Because I'll tell you the one thing here, Tone, that I think the Eagles have going in their favor. And if this was, and we would not agree Howie's one of the best salesmen and one of the best pitchmen to guys that are out there like Slay and these guys who are, say, in Detroit or in New York, like, say, Bradbury. Look at what this, here's the pitch to Bobby Wagner. Hey, did you see all the guys who just got premium deals? I mean, Bobby, you're a potential Hall of Famer. The guy we just had here, TJ Edwards, made $7 million a year. You come here on a one-year deal, you could be that guy too. And your next deal, you could be talking about an $8-9 million deal like Von Miller signed in Buffalo. Do you make that pitch because he's got equity now in that? He could sit here and go like this. Dude, Bradbury just got a deal. Slay still kept his money, right? And then you go to Wagner and go, plus, dude, that guy's an upgrade on Edwards. He's going to cost you maybe some dough here.
Yeah, he is. He is. And, it's
but I think you could take the hometown discount here and put that conversation, because you know why? Because I think how he's built that equity up, went to the Super Bowl, guys got paid. Those are two things free agents want to hear.
Yeah, and the fact that your quarterback is trending in the right direction as well, that's another thing that free agents want to hear. And, on the offensive side, the fact you got guys actually getting their numbers, again, the Eagles overall have a pretty good situation when it comes to attracting free agents. And when it comes to Bobby Wagner, like you mentioned, somebody asked me earlier, do I think Bobby Wagner is a possibility? I don't think it is, but I also don't think Howie Roseman should be negligent or afraid to make the pitch, because I like the pitch that you just made. Look, this team, we went over here. We were just in the Super Bowl. You can make an argument that we were a linebacker away. That could be you. And on top of that, you come here for a short deal, 1-year deal. You revamp your career. I know you were just a Pro Bowler, but hey, listen, you come here for a year, get your feet settled, and then you can double back and get more money on the back end. It's definitely a great pitch, and that's something I would pitch. I think Bobby Wagner will take this defense to a whole nother level. If you thought TJ Edwards kept everybody in line, Bobby Wagner would not miss a beat. He would be the Fred Warner of the Philadelphia Eagles. That's how good Bobby Wagner is and still is. I was surprised the Rams cut him, but it was more so about money.
Money.
Kind of similar to Darius Slay. It's not about the talent. It's about the money.
It's about the money.
I think Wagner's a solid pickup.
Those two players, Tone, are not guys that are dudes that are out of gas.
Right.
Those are guys that see, the problem that you're having with these salaries that I think is being more evident now, and I think this is still some of the casualty of COVID, is that the cap only went up $16 million. Look at how much the value of the quarterback position is going up every year when you're talking about salaries. Shit, look at Mahomes' contract at $42 million he signed 3 years ago. They've redone the deal every year so far, and he's under market value already. That's 3 years removed, and he's making $45 million. We're now talking about $50 million deals now being thrown out there for quarterbacks. I mean, I think the salaries for a lot of these guys are outpacing what the growth of the cap is. And so that's becoming more of an issue, and why you've got to put a balance sheet together that's fair here. Let me get your thoughts on the Mariota signing.
Yeah.
And him. Did you agree or disagree with my take on him? Look, if you're thinking this guy's a frontline starter and going to carry your franchise, he ain't it. But how we put him in a different role here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Let's be honest. The Eagles tried to draft Mariota a while ago. They tried that during the Chip Kelly era, and I got to be honest, I wasn't one of those people that was really campaigning for that. That just wasn't the move I was really keen on. I saw him in college. He was a fun player to watch, but I personally didn't feel like it translated that well to the NFL. I just felt like he was small. I just didn't think he would hold up, and obviously that was the case. But as far as him being in Philadelphia, it makes all the sense in the world. It allows them to maintain continuity on offense. Your skill position guys don't have to change the way they play like they had to do with Gardner Minshew. I can't help but to continue to go back to that Saints game where they literally ran the Jalen Hurts game plan for Gardner Minshew. And
dude, he couldn't outrun you.
It was
and
malpractice.
He's running RPOs. I'm like, what are they doing?
Yeah, I was looking at some Mariota Falcons footage. Granted, he didn't have the best year, but he had them in some games. He won some games. He lost. He lost more than he won. But 5-8, okay. I mean, he's really a backup at the end of the day. But I was looking at some of his film from the Atlanta days, and he still got some wheels on him. And they ran a lot of RPO with him over there. So I think him coming to Philly just makes perfect sense. I think, as a matter of fact, who do we have on the show? Was it Tony Dungy or one?
Tony or Bruce, I think, said you got to have somebody that resembles him.
Exactly. It was Coach Arians. Shout out to Coach Arians for coming onto the program. He came on. He said, "Look, if you're going to have one of those guys, you got to have someone behind him that does something similar." And I always thought that was common sense, but for some reason, teams didn't start building their quarterback rooms that way until I want to say maybe the past few years. But yeah, ultimately, I think the Mariota pickup is a solid move. Again, don't expect him to come in here and go on like a 5-game win streak. Don't do that. No, but he can definitely win you a game or two if Jalen goes down for a game or two.
Yeah, we have Bob sitting there thinking and lying here, saying that I said that he's coming in here to be a starter. I never said that.
That's not what you said.
I never said that. Again, you see what I'm saying, Tone?
Sileo, okay. You're polarizing. Don't you get it by now?
Hey, man, I mean, that's just not what I said, man. I mean, I actually told you that he's going to come in here as a backup, and he's going to define his role here.
Right.
Vet says, and the Niners can't stop the RPO. Okay, well, again, the Niners were a completely different football team after they got McCaffrey. They went on a 12-game win streak. All right, the Rashad Penny sign, is that kind of in the same situation, Tone? You think as Mariota? Again, you're bringing him in. I don't want to pollute the take here, so just your take on him.
Yeah, when we first brought in Rashad Penny, my first reaction was, because I know Rashad Penny, not personally, obviously, but I'm familiar with his career in Seattle. And one thing I do know is him, along with Chris Carson, couldn't stay on the field. They struggled to stay on the field for the past several years. Seattle has struggled to keep running backs on the field. That's why they drafted Kenneth Walker IV, who came in and did amazing things. I hope they can keep him on the field because he runs very physical as well. But Rashad Penny, it's not a talent conversation with him. I've seen him play.
Agreed.
When he was in college, I've seen him play when he was on the field in Seattle. When he played, he had a stretch of games. I think it was in 2021 or 2020. I can't remember when it was, but he had a stretch of games where he had like over 115 yards rushing like 4 or 5 games in a row. He was kind of just going crazy. But overall, though, a guy like Rashad Penny, when he bringing him in, it's not something that I'm going to write home about. It's a solid move for the simple fact that you add some depth to the running back room. You bring in a running back that's more conducive to what you want in your running back, a guy that's more north-south than east-west like Miles Sanders was. That's not taking anything away from Miles Sanders' production, but the reality is Miles Sanders had moments where he kind of had brain farts in the backfield. And Rashad Penny, it's going to be a fresh start for him. Another thing about Rashad Penny is, again, it's not about talent with him. It's always about health. That's the only conversation when it comes to him, in my opinion. It's always about health. I think one of the reasons he came to Philly was not just because it's a winning culture, not just because you have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, not just because of the O-line. I think he also came here because he looked at that training staff and said, wow, they had the least amount of injuries all throughout the season last year and the year before that.
That's a great take.
And they were the healthiest team going into the playoffs. If I can get with them, revitalize my career, get at least 150 carries, average about 4 or 5, maybe 6 yards a carry and stay healthy for at least 15 games. If I can get 14 to 15 games healthy with the Eagles organization, with that training staff, that can set me up at least for maybe getting a 2-year deal somewhere else, maybe a 3-year deal. You never know. But I think he really came here for the strength and conditioning and the training staff more than just the winning culture.
Here's again who he is, though. And you're right. I watched him at San Diego State. I had a show based in Southern California, and I watched the kid. Okay, he broke all of Donnell Pumphrey's records, and obviously a bigger kid, and a guy who was taken in the first round by Seattle. But in 82 games that he was qualified to play, and he only played in 42 of them and started 11. That means this, Tone, he averages 8 games a year. I mean, 8 games a year in 5 years is kind of who he is. Okay? Some people keep throwing out. And here's your comment. 6.2 yards a carry. I get it. No one's saying that. But 8 games a year?
Not good enough.
You're not building an offense around a guy, nor are you relying on a guy. And
to your point, I didn't know it was that bad, right? I looked up his time in Seattle. He's been there for 5 seasons. I had no idea he only started 11 games.
11 games. That first rounder.
That's terrible. That's terrible. And again,
because he was not healthy, Tone, and he wasn't great in pass protection. But look, I think you have to look at what Howie's priorities are on the money that he spends. He gave Boston Scott $2 million as a base. He gave this guy 1.3. Scott's going to be the frontline back. Penny's not, because you can't count on him on an everyday basis to be in the offensive huddle and to go like this. Well, he's going to play 17 games in Philly. That's wishful thinking after 5 years.
Agreed.
Here, look at this. 14 games, 10 games, 3 games, 10 games, 5 games. I mean, he's played in 18 games in 3 years.
My mom always told me, when somebody show you who they are, believe them. Believe them.
All right, Tone, what do you do at the number 3 wide receiver position?
You know what? It saddens me because I was really high on Quez when we drafted him. One of my first videos that I've ever created in this YouTube space was a Quez Watkins reaction, breakdown, all that kind of stuff. And I had high hopes for him because of the speed. But this is the NFL. Some of the best receivers aren't the fastest. So speed doesn't just keep you in the NFL. Speed may get you into the NFL, but it doesn't keep you there. And it got to a point with me where I felt like he kind of got paralyzed by the presence of an AJ Brown. He actually mentioned in his exit meeting, his exit press conference or exit interviews, he mentioned how he knows he regressed. He knows that he was struggling to accept his role as that third guy. Because remember, last year he was the number 2 behind Devontae. As Jalen Reagor began to fall down the depth chart. So Quez struggled to transition from that number 2 role to that number 3 role behind AJ. But in my humble opinion, with all due respect to him, it's AJ freaking Brown. You better get comfortable where you are. So, I mean, ultimately, I feel like they need to bring someone in to challenge him for that 3rd spot. I'm sorry. I don't care who it is. You could draft a guy somewhere in the 5th, 6th round, wherever you got to find them. Bring somebody into free agency. We still have a handful of months left before the season starts, but Quez needs some pressure put on him, because before the season even started, I used to always get in debates with people about people saying, "Oh yeah, Quez is better than Zach Pascal." I'm like, where? How? Like how do you believe? Like, what makes you believe that? Because he's faster? Is that it? Because if you ask me, Zach Pascal is a more disciplined route runner. He has better hands. You can use him in blocking in a run game.
He's a bigger dude.
He's a bigger frame. Overall,
I think he's got better hands.
Yeah, he has better hands. So, and for me, the nail was put in the coffin, not just in that Super Bowl matchup, but the nail was put in the coffin for me in that Dallas game, where he was rounding off so many routes and he was getting out-muscled to the ball time and time again. That kind of just put a really bad taste in my mouth with Quez. So I think the Eagles definitely need to think about upgrading that position, or at least making some kind of move to someone who's a little bit more short-handed, because speed can't be the only reason why you have a job.
Here's my problem with him as well. In traffic and when you're fighting for the football, he just gets outmanned. How many times do you see guys take away the ball from him too? When it's a back and forth catch on who's going to get it, the defender or the receiver. I don't think he battles for it enough. Hey, by the way, I just got a text from a friend of mine that works in the NFL offices. Get this, here so far some of the preliminary compensation picks. Because of the Hardgrave, it looks like they're going to get another 3rd rounder. And as of right now, with Edwards and with White and a couple other guys, it looks like they're going to get a 6 and a 7. So they could potentially have, and still yet to be determined, on Gardner Johnson and on Sayamalo. So right now they're going to get another 3rd round draft choice.
So answer this for me, because I've always been the compensatory pick game is always funny to me. Do those picks go to the 2024 draft or this upcoming draft?
This draft.
Okay.
this draft.
Okay.
So they're gonna get more picks for this draft here because they're free agents. You know what? And when that thing got pushed in, where you get these compensation picks because you're losing free agents, it's pretty crazy, man. But so as of right now, the Javon Hargrave looks like they're going to bring in a third round pick. You know what? I'm gonna a Tone. I think you're right. I think it is the 24 draft that they're going to get those picks.
Yeah. Let me ask you this really quick.
I'm going to have to double check that. I think it's 24.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question.
I think it's the 24 draft that it goes into next year. And I think it's the 24. I don't think they get the picks for this season. It's the 24. Right. Let me ask you this one.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What's the price tag? Do you agree with me on this? Mm-hmm. Here's the floor, and here's the ceiling for Jalen Hurts' contract.
This conversation always gets funny. Let's I'm looking forward to it.
Kyler Murray is the floor.
I agree.
And Lamar Jackson is the ceiling. I think he's going to get $51 million.
Hurts or Jackson?
Jackson.
Okay.
And so Hurts is somewhere in the middle in there.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts. Well, first and foremost, let me preface it with this. I am very much for players getting their money. However they got to get it, go get it. Because the NFL don't love you. They will replace you in a split second. You've played in this league, Sileo. You've played in many leagues, and you understand the grind. You understand how they make it a point to get somebody younger and a little bit faster your job if they can pay somebody a little less. So,
absolutely.
You understand how this game works, and I'm pretty sure wherever you went, you made sure you got it. You got as many coins as you possibly could. So I'm always for the players getting as much money as they can because the NFL, these teams, they don't love you. But also, I'm never against the organization making a decision that's best for them. Ultimately, the business is the business, and I will never, ever argue against the business side of football. Now, I say all that to say, Jalen Hurts is going to get $50 million minimum. I think that's what's going to end up happening because I'm looking at Kyler Murray's contract, 46.1 annual average, Russell Wilson, 48.5 annual average, Aaron Rodgers, 50.2, right? Obviously, Aaron Rodgers got that because we know who he is, but Russell Wilson had a down year last year. I think, yeah, like it's and also
the cap is going up. Him with 1 year?
Say that one more time.
Are you okay with him only doing it for 1 year? Because didn't Wentz do it like this? And the Eagles jumped. Hey, by the way, am I saying there's more of a trajectory for Jalen Hurts versus Carson Wentz? If I go back to 2017, it's revised history now. But I don't know. Everyone that I ever talked to was completely sold that Carson Wentz was the franchise quarterback back then.
We all were. There's no reason to even lie about it. We all were.
I know. I mean, and by the way, they did not draft Jalen Hurts to be the starter in Philadelphia. They drafted him as a seatbelt.
Yeah.
Are you okay with going with that, though, and giving him $50 million off of what you've seen him do?
You see, I have to be okay with it, right? And let me tell you why. It'd be one thing if he just had a decent season, a playoff berth, one playoff win. Okay, you got a playoff win, all right. You won your division, okay. But he made it to the Super Bowl. He didn't just make it to the Super Bowl. He proved that he belonged there.
Oh no, he was the engine.
So it's kind of like I have to be mindful of the fact that the distance traveled. His commitment to his craft, his commitment to his teammates. I know for a fact if I give him this money, I don't have to worry about whether or not he's going to have to look at the playbook or not. You know what I mean? It's like, at the end of the day, you're not even.
He is the playbook.
Right, exactly. And, to be honest, you got to pay him. I would pay him because, look, these days, it's not even about if you're the best or not. It's about, okay, what the market is telling you and timing. And the timing and the market says you got to pay this young man. And also what he was able to provide. Taking his team to the Super Bowl, you got to pay Jalen Hurts. You got to pay him. And I can't really argue against it. Again, now how you structure it according to his play style and so on and so forth, how you structure it. Again, like I said, I'm pro player getting your money, but I'm also pro organization structuring things how you need to structure it, that works for you. So again, I want him to get his $50+ million a year. However that looks over a 4, 5, 6 year span, hey, Howie Roseman figure it out. But as far as the salary goes, $50 million. That's where it is.
How about doing something that, because listen, I don't think these guys last. It's proven. RPO guys don't last. How about structuring a conversation like this with him? Say you give him a 4-year deal, right? That comes out to $200 million. You gamble, not in the final year, but in the first year. You give him the 60. Then you go down to 50, 40, 30. So not only are you not killing your cap as the years go on, but what you're doing is you're helping your team and your cap by structuring it so. See, to me, in these RPO guys, dude, giving Mahomes a 10-year contract, he's a pocket passer. This guy's not really – he runs under the necessity. Jalen runs because it's part of the offense. And you're going to ask that number 2, the 200 carries, it concerns me when you're on pace for that. With 200 carries, that number's supposed to come down, Tone. They're elevating that number. When you lose 1,300 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns, whatever you want to say about Miles Sanders, that's still a lot of production. That's about 14% of your offensive output that you're losing, that you're counting on other guys to pick up the mail for. Will they do it? Again, you're in the land of unknown. You're asking your quarterback to carry it. So I'd go like this. Let me front end it instead of back end it. Because what you don't want to do is, what if the kid's really a good ball player and you've got a $70 million nut at the end of this thing, and you've got to start jettisoning players like you see in Dallas, where they got to start just getting rid of players. Reverse it. Pay him up front. Watch this. If he gets $60 million, Tone, and you give him 55 to 60, 55, 58 million in the first year plus the bonus, and he's not as good, dude, that cap hit as it goes out, it's not going to kill you. But you gambled only for 1 year, really, with the big money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the reality is, when you're a dual threat guy, as you say, a dual threat, when you're a dual threat guy, right? The reality is you are putting your body in harm's way more than the average bear. That's the reality. And you have to, organizations are accounting for that. Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick, at the end of the day, we've seen how RG3. We've seen how it pans out. But one thing I will say, though, about Jalen Hurts, if there's anybody that I do have faith that will eventually transition into being more of a pocket passer, not saying he was just going to stop running in totality. I like to think about that Russell Wilson like kind of transition. If there's anybody that I think can actually pivot and slowly begin to become more of a thrower, less of a runner, I think it's him, because of his desire to truly, truly want to be the best at what he does. Meeting him in person at the Maxwell Awards, I had the opportunity to actually talk to him and and chop it up with him briefly. Humble dude, real good dude. And when he told me verbatim, regardless of what he experienced throughout that 2022 season, good or bad, sometimes, and you played the game, sometimes your legs are heavier on Monday than they are on Sunday. You know how that goes, Sileo. And he was saying to me, I said, well, how do you get up in the morning? How do you stay focused? How do you just stay to the grind like this? How do you just keep your head down and just understand that got to keep grinding? How do you make it Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday? How do you do it? And his exact words to me was, well, I saw something I wanted. And for me, at least, when I see something I want, nothing else matters. And it sent chills in my body, because to see someone truly dedicated to their craft in that way, and you see it, it's not just hearsay. You see it. You saw it from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, his diligence to want to get better as a passer. Some of the throws he was making in the Super Bowl were like, whoa, I didn't know he had those in him. So it's like, I see how good of a thrower he can be. And I know that eventually you don't get faster in the NFL, you get slower. So eventually he is going to have to become more of a pocket passer. I think he can be that guy. But again, like you said about the contract, it has to be structured in a way has to make sense. And that's where it gets kind of beyond me. I don't really know how they're going to do that. But I just know that you got to pay this kid, got to give him his money. If there's anybody I trust with the organization, if there's anybody I trust that can get their body right and stay on their fundamentals, stay on top of things, unlike Carson Wentz, I think Jalen Hurts can be that guy.
How about this one here? I'll show you exactly what you're talking about. Tom Brady has won 7 Super Bowls. He cashed his family in because he has a love for football and winning. I tell everyone this, Tone. When you play at a level like Brady and Hurts and all those guys, your toughest divorce will never be your partner or your wife. It'll be the game.
Yeah.
Because what Jalen puts in, Jalen walking away from football will be the toughest thing in his life because you sacrifice everyone's time, your own, your body, your soul, your heart, your crying, your cheers, all of that. Look at the swings that Jalen Hurts has gone on in his life. Southeastern Conference Player of the Year at Alabama, a national championship runner-up. Then he gets pulled in the national title game. You talk about being humbled. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Then he turns into a great teammate, and he goes somewhere and turns into a runner-up to the Heisman. He comes into, him coming into Philadelphia and watching that Wentz situation must have taught him everything. That may have been that decision right there, him being in Philly and the whole Wentz nightmare going on and what happened to him in Alabama had to be 2 of the biggest learning curves for him because he showed that he had to be dedicated. And then when he got to Philadelphia, he saw what not to do and how to be a better teammate than what Carson was. See, I always thought Carson was a teammate to half the locker room. And Hurts is a teammate to everyone in the locker room. And I think that's the difference between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him, and why you said probably the most important thing, Tone. You trust them with $50 million. You trust them with it.
And Jason Kelce said it. He foregoed retirement because he needed to see where this Jalen Hurts train was going. He said it himself. He said, I needed to find out where this kid was taking us because there was something about him. And, when a guy like Jason Kelce says that, I got to take it seriously.
Finally here. Howie Roseman. We get Philly 500 on, and you two guys, because you've been around Philly longer than me. You guys are you're not hot and cold, but it's funny how you go like this. See, Howie vision, and then when Philly said it, it's not bad or it's not good. It's just Howie vision.
It just is.
Explain to me what that is. Like you're not pissed at him. You don't love him, but it's just the snow globe of the Howie world. What does that mean?
It's kind of like living in your parents' house when you're a teenager. No matter what you think you run it. You think you know what's coming. You think you've seen it all. You think you know everything. You think you've been through it with them. But they continue to surprise you, and they continue to remind you who's boss.
This sounds like my wife.
And it's like Howie is he's such a unique animal to me because and John said this. I think the reason we see Howie Roseman operate the way he does is because he's been given the latitude by Jeffrey Lurie, and Jeffrey Lurie trusts him, right? I was talking to John about this on Football 24/7, and I asked him. I said, John, have you ever seen a GM operate with this level of poise and shrewdness and confidence and patience and free agency? Have you seen a GM maneuver like this before? He said no. And the reason you haven't is because most GMs are GMing for their jobs. Howie Roseman has the luxury of being able to look 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the line because he has that latitude with Jeffrey Lurie. I'm not entirely sure how their relationship budded the way it did, but it is what it is. And like you said, Howie vision, and I always say we're living in Howie snow globe, right? Like I told you before. The reality is Howie makes good decisions. He makes questionable ones. He makes bad ones. And somehow, some way, when you thought When you thought this man did not have your best interest, he comes out of nowhere and says, "Hey, I come bearing gifts." You know, it's like an abusive relationship. It's like you want to leave, you want to leave, but man, he just loves you so good.
How do you justify Andre Dillard, Derek Barnett, Jalen Reagor,
dude, man,
all of these guys who have been colossal disasters?
Yeah,
and then yet you do this. So I guess maybe this is it. What you're telling me, Sills, you're right, but 2 Super Bowls in 5 years and 1 with a win and 2 NFC titles. Oh, shit.
That's what I'm saying. It's like you look at Jalen Reagor, and I'll tell you this straight up. The Jalen Hurts pick wouldn't have been as blasphemous if Jalen Reagor didn't come before. I promise you that.
Hey, I think he's going to get $28 million in Minnesota, dude. I think that guy's going to get.
He's gonna get 28 parking passes. Like, that's about it. Like, he's listen, man.
No. I'm talking Jefferson's going to get 28.
Oh, Jefferson. Oh my God. Jefferson's going to get 30 million. Like he's going to get 33. Like, it's going to be ridiculous. But you're right, man. So those picks, Dillard, Barnett, Reagor, those picks are rather inexcusable. To say the least. Especially Andre Dillard. Say what you want about him being a worthy depth piece or whatever. You drafted him to be a starting left tackle. He never was able to carry the mail. It was injury. It was a combination of things, injuries and losing out to a 7th-round pick. He was going through some emotional issues or whatever, so on and so forth. Say what you want, but the reality is they drafted him to be a 1st-round talent at left tackle. He couldn't do that. So a 7th-rounder had to come in and take his job, and that's what ended up happening. Barnett, he gave us that good rookie season, and it kind of fell off from there. He's just, and the thing is about Barnett is what makes Barnett's situation more irritating. He's actually talented, but he lacks discipline. I hate saying this to somebody that's never played the game on a high level before, but he on the outside looking in, and I'll lean on you in this regard. Doesn't he lack a certain level of football IQ?
No, I think it's discipline.
Okay.
I think it's discipline. I'm always reluctant to say something about a guy's knowledge because I don't know the man personally, whether or not he's smart or he's dumb.
Understood. I agree with that.
So
yeah, it's
I always kind of like try to stay away from that because that's a personal item that you have to know the person, whether he's dumb or he's smart.
Understood.
But to me, go by his actions on the field. And so I use the word discipline issues.
I like that better.
Think he's a disciplined player. You can't go into a game and have 3 tackles and then 5 penalties. That's a lack of discipline.
Did you know for his career, he has more defensive penalties than sacks?
Okay, Tone, hey, Tone, what you said may not be wrong, but unless you and me know the guy, I think we have to hang it on. He's just not a very disciplined ball player.
And that's what I mean. Again, I don't want, I take back the football IQ part because, again, you're right. I definitely, again, like I said, I've never played the game, so I don't want to ever overstep my bounds. I try to cover this game and talk about this game from an observatory perspective. I never want to overplay my hand, right, or play myself, because at the end of the day, I'm in this thing to learn more than anything. And I think just based off what we see on the field, there is a certain level of discipline that's just not there. So I agree with you on that.
I want to get your final thing here. I got to tell you guys something here before we take a timeout. You've been watching this whole thing with Darius Slay and me.
Yeah.
Darius Slay, I mean, I don't get where he thought, and after everyone, including the organization, had put out that they were releasing him, Inquirer, radio stations in town, put it out that he was being cut. He tweeted out, then rolled it back later on and walked it back later in the afternoon. That's kind of the story that we see. They end up giving him an extension that's $3 million less. So Howie gets that in the side of the ledger, but just your take on how Darius Slay is handled this week.
Yeah, we spoke about this off the air, and I even spoke about it on my own show, JAKIB Sports. Honestly, I wasn't really a fan of how Darius Slay's situation was handled for the most part, for the simple fact that I was always taught when you're conducting business in any capacity, I don't care if outside of sports, whatever in life, if you're conducting business, it stays between you and the person that you're negotiating with. No matter how those negotiations may go, it's important to keep certain things in-house because by doing so, you still maintain control of your narrative, regardless of the hearsay. You're a public figure, and people know the Eagles are trying to maneuver your contract. It's no secret. But what you can control is your narrative. And when you continue to tweet, and because look, I'm not of the mindset of shut up and dribble. I'm not that guy. I don't care if my athletes have an opinion on anything. But when it comes to business, when you're conducting your own business, lay low, play it cool, and things usually work out in your favor. When you go about tweeting and you saying things prematurely, it's kind of like CJ Gardner-Johnson. Like you're saying things.
He took it down. He deleted that.
Yeah,
tweet.
but like this is 2023. You tweet something, somebody screenshot it immediately. You're a public
Thank
figure.
you.
You can't be playing like that. So again, this is not about talent with either of those guys. It's strictly about when you're conducting business. I just don't think you should be out there tweeting willy-nilly like that when nothing has been set in stone yet. Nothing. If you see reports about you being cut or whatever, okay. As long as you don't confirm that, it's hearsay. We see reports about stuff all the time. That doesn't make it real. And the only transaction that ever happened officially when it came to Darius Slay was him actually getting the extension that we saw. So I just felt like,
and like I said, he would take a pay cut.
Yeah, and he took a pay cut like I thought he would.
Tone, I thought it'd be more substantial, but it wasn't. It was only $3 million. And again, do you agree with me on this? I think he saw what Stephon Gilmore got, that $8 million, and he said in the open market, man, I'm not getting more than that guy because they're pretty much around the same age. And he said, 32, you know what? I think it's in my best interest to stay here in Philly. Hey, Tone, you've been spectacular. Dude, we're going to do this again, man.
Definitely. I enjoyed it. I appreciate you for giving me the look. It means a lot to me.
You got it, man. Thank you so much, Tone. All right, guys, do me a favor. Please hit the like button. Hour number 3. We'll be right back with you. Got a ton of stuff. We'll reset. Keep it here on the National